Welcome to Your Healthy Kitchen from YRMC.
Welcome to Your Healthy Kitchen. I'm your host, Rita Carey Rubin. And today we're going to make a few really easy, delicious recipes using tofu, one of my favorite high-protein plant-based foods. And while tofu is enjoyed daily in many Asian countries, it doesn't make its way into American kitchens that often. And that's too bad, because tofu is a versatile, high-protein food that also contains a lot of healthy fats, some powerful phytonutrients, and calcium. So I remember the first time I tried tofu. This was back in the 70s in Woodstock, New York, so there was a bit of tofu around. And I just tried a plain chunk of it while my sister was preparing to add it to a meal she was making. And I remember thinking it could use some ketchup, because tofu by itself is pretty mildly flavored. But the meal my sister made with it was delicious. And since then, I've enjoyed tofu in a huge variety of dishes. And I'm always impressed with how versatile this simple, nutritious food can be, if you know what to do with it. So tofu is made from soybeans that are soaked, ground up, and cooked in water to make a rich, nutritious soy milk. And the protein and water components of the soy milk are then separated, just like when dairy milk is separated into curds and whey to make cheese. And the soy is then pressed to remove some of the water, and tofu is what results from that process. So to learn more about how tofu is made, we've posted a video on our website at yrmc.org. Just click on Make a Health Connection and then scroll down the page to the link for Your Healthy Kitchen. So you can buy tofu in most natural food stores and supermarkets today, and here are some of the types you might find. So the most common you'll find are firm or extra firm types of tofu. The difference is that the extra firm has just been pressed a little bit longer, and the tofu is a little denser and might hold together a little bit better in like a stir fry or something like that. But real similar. I actually prefer the firm to the extra firm, because the extra firm, the texture gets a little grainy. So you almost always use firm tofu. You can also find silken tofu. And silken has a totally different texture. It's more custard-like and creamy, and is really good for recipes that are blended. So you could put it in sauces or soups or in pie fillings or in a smoothie, which is what we'll be using it for in a little bit. And another type of tofu that's been showing up in markets is sprouted tofu. So it's tofu that's made with sprouted soybeans. And this has really become my favorite type of tofu. The sprouted soybeans are a little bit more nutritious, because whenever you sprout a bean, a legume, or a seed, the protein and the nutrients become a little more available and more easily absorbed. And the sprouted tofu I really like has a really nice texture and just a slightly sweeter flavor, which I really prefer. So we'll be using our sprouted tofu today. And the first dish we'll make is an adaptation of a recipe from a favorite cookbook of mine. It's called Seduction of Rice by Jeffrey Alford and Naomi Duguid. And if you like to cook and you really like cookbooks, their books are just beautiful. They're some of my favorites. They travel around the world and photograph food and people, and then share the recipes that they learn from different parts of the world. So this recipe is one of the many quick meals I make with tofu, and it's absolutely best when made in late summer when juicy ripe tomatoes are available at the farmer's market and in backyard gardens. So we'll just use the firm sprouted tofu or sprouted soybean tofu. And tofu is packed in water. And when you buy tofu, if you don't use everything that's in the package, the way to store it in your refrigerator is to put it in a container and cover it with water. And it'll stay good for, 3 to 5 days, and depending on how fresh the tofu is. And you'll know when it's bad, so you'll know. So here's the block of tofu. What I really like about this silken tofu is on the bottom half of it there's a grid that is perfect for slicing the tofu into cubes. And Naomi and Jeffrey's recipe calls for cutting the tofu into inch square pieces, and I actually like it a little bit smaller. So this little grid is perfect. It's about a ½ inch square. So tofu is real soft, very easy to slice. And one thing to know about tofu as well is when you buy it, look for organic tofu, because conventional soy, or any kind of soy that's not organic, really has been shown to have a lot of pesticide residues. So to avoid that, always look for organic. That's real important. So these cubes, we're just going to place in a bowl, and we'll just let them drain a little bit. So some of the water will come out of the tofu, and we won't use that water. We'll just lift the tofu out of it. And some recipes call for pressing a lot of the water out of the tofu, but this recipe you don't need to. It's really easy. So just set this aside. And the next ingredient, the most important ingredient in this dish, are the tomatoes. And like I said, you want really ripe, really juicy tomatoes, because the juice from the tomatoes is a big part of the sauce in the dish. So tomatoes from the farmer's market, from Whipstone Farm, super sweet, juicy, ripe. Another benefit of using nice ripe tomatoes is that when fruits like tomatoes are left to ripen on the vine, they actually become a lot more nutritious. So there's a lot more of the phytochemicals that are so important in fruits and veggies that are allowed to ripen in the field. So next thing, we've got some chopped garlic, and that's going in a pan with a little bit of peanut oil. You could also use sesame oil. You could use coconut oil as well. Something with a little flavor is nice in this dish. And some scallions. So a little bit of garlic and some scallions. And we just saute this on medium-low heat, just for a minute or so, until it really starts to smell fragrant. And scallions, if you remember, are some of the most nutritious things you can find in the market. They're really close to wild green onions, or wild onions, so they're real packed with all of those important phytonutrients. So we'll let this saute, and then we'll add the tomatoes. And the recipe, the original recipe, which you have, it's posted at yrmc.org at Your Healthy Kitchen, calls for, I think, 1 pound of tomatoes, but I like to double it. I really love the tomatoes in this dish, so this is a couple of pounds of tomatoes. So we just add that. And tomatoes are packed with a healthy phytochemical called lycopene. It's one of the chemicals that gives tomatoes their color. And super good for you, could help to lower your blood pressure, help to lower your cholesterol, could help to prevent all types of cancers. And that lycopene becomes a little bit more available when there's a little fat combined with the tomato, so that peanut oil will help that. And then next ingredient is the tofu, right? So we'll just scoop these guys out. In a lot of recipes with tofu, you see the tofu is fried in oil, and I really like this recipe because it's not fried. This is just tofu as tofu. It's not disguised as anything else. But the flavors of the tomatoes and the scallions and the garlic really lend themselves well to this dish, because tofu doesn't really taste like a whole lot. And so you want things that are nicely flavored to be served with the tofu. And then last is the sauce, which is made of a little bit of sugar and some salt. And I've actually reduced the salt in the recipe as well. So it's actually quite low in sodium, a lot lower in sodium than a lot of Asian dishes can be. So we've got some tamari, or you could use soy sauce, just a little bit of sugar. It's really common in Asian cooking. You kind of have a little sweet, a little sour, a little salt. Just stir this up and toss it in. So it's just adding just a little bit of salt and sweet. And the sour comes from the tomatoes. And then last, we'll top it off with some herbs. And the recipe, the original recipe, calls for chopping up some cilantro or coriander. And that is absolutely delicious with this dish. But today I'm going to do something a little different and use mint and basil instead. I discovered this one day when I didn't have any cilantro in my house. I discovered that last minute after I'd already made the dish. So I just went out into the garden and picked some basil and some mint. So those are some other herbs that go really well with Asian flavors. And so I'll use basil, a couple tablespoons of basil and maybe half that amount of mint, so maybe about a tablespoon. Toss it in. Smells delicious. But there it is. Isn't that beautiful? You just can't go wrong with something with fresh tomatoes and fresh herbs. And so to serve this, I like it with some brown rice. And if you have some greens, maybe some chard or some spinach that you've sauteed or steamed, that goes really well on the side as well. And then I like to top it with some peanuts as well. So really, really simple dish with tofu. This is fast food in my house. It's very, very quick and easy. So another way to enjoy tofu is to blend it into sauces and dressings and soups and smoothies and desserts. And you want to choose the silken tofu for these types of recipes because it blends easily and has a rich, creamy texture. So we are going to make a smoothie using the silken tofu. And just like the firm tofu, the silken tofu is stored in water. So same deal, you open it up and drain the water off. And as you can see, the texture is different. Like I said, it's a little custard-like, really soft. So the smoothie is really easy. We'll use about a half a cup of the silken tofu. And this is the sprouted type as well. Again, I really like this sprouted tofu for its flavor and texture. It's about half a cup of that. And some frozen berries. So these are frozen wild blueberries. You could also use any kind of berry, any mixed berries. I like blueberries because out of all of the berries, they are the ones that are really the most nutritious. And if you can find wild blueberries, those are even better than the cultivated types. So, tofu, berries, some water. And then a bunch of other ingredients. And when you look at the recipe at yrmc.org, you'll see the amounts of these recipes. There's suggestions for variations. So depending on your tastes, whether you like things a little more sweet or a little more tart, or depending on how sweet or tart your berries are, you really can adjust these ingredients to your taste. So first off, I do a big pinch of cinnamon. So cinnamon is wonderful, nutritious spice, anti-inflammatory, helps to control blood sugars. So that's nice. It pairs well with the cocoa, which is what we'll add next. So this is just cocoa powder. And depending on how chocolatey you like things, you can add 1 tablespoon or 2 or more if you need to. So some cocoa. And I throw in some walnuts for a little extra protein and fiber, and some of those omega-3 fats, which are so good for you. And then depending on how sweet you like it, you could throw in a little sweetener. I'm just going to throw in a date, because with the date you get a little sweet, but you also get a lot more nutrients than just plain sugar, and some fiber. And then I'm going to blend it up and then taste it, because sometimes I like it a little more tart, and then I'll add some lemon. And you may think cocoa, didn't think cocoa was good for you, but it is. Cocoa is really packed with nutrients, phytonutrients that, just like the berries, help to lower blood pressure, help to lower cholesterol, anti-inflammatory, so very, very nutritious food, actually. So I'm going to taste this. It's good, but I'm going to add a little lemon, so to kind of perk it up a little bit. And if I have organic lemon like this, I'll throw like a whole slice in there instead of just the juice, because a lot of good nutrients are right in that white part of the lemon, that white pith. So we'll throw that in there. And there you go. So just sample your smoothie and see how you like it. And a little sweeter or a little more tart. There's a lot of things you can adjust with that recipe. So there's a lot of conflicting diet recommendations regarding soy foods like tofu. And some sources consider soy a superfood that we should eat every day, while others post soy on their top 10 list of foods to never ever eat. And in reality, big, well-designed studies with whole soy foods have repeatedly demonstrated health benefits from eating as little as a half a cup of tofu or a cup of soy milk a day. And these studies found that soy consumption can reduce the risk of lung, prostate, and even breast cancer, as well as improving survival from these cancers. So it's important to note that studies showing benefit from soy used whole soy foods, so tofu, tempeh, or soy milk, and not processed soy, which has names like isolated soy protein, soy isoflavones, or texturized vegetable protein. And processed soy is commonly found in things like protein drinks and bars, protein powders, high-protein cereals, meat-like substances, including some vegetarian meat substitutes, and other processed foods. So this type of soy hasn't been shown to benefit health in any way, and I really recommend against or avoiding processed soy. So there's also concern that soy might interfere with thyroid hormone function, but recent research suggests that eating whole soy foods 2 or 3 times a week will not affect thyroid function or medication, as long as you don't eat soy right after you take your thyroid medication. So since most people take thyroid hormone in the morning, you wouldn't want to have soy at breakfast. But if you have questions about soy, be sure to ask your physician about whether or not it would be a good food for you. And so, I hope this helps you to venture out and try a little tofu someday soon. So remember, you can find all of our recipes and videos at yrmc.org. Click on Make a Health Connection and then scroll down the page to the link for your healthy kitchen. And now you can follow us on Facebook. Just join our group page. It's called Your Healthy Kitchen with Rita Carey Rubin. And you'll get the latest on our upcoming shows, plus insider tips and recipes. And you can even ask questions and add your own recipes, including your favorite tofu recipes. So until next time, enjoy some soy, and we'll see you soon.